Oh, when we're live. Good afternoon, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to the Standing Committee meeting of May 11th, 2021. I'm going to call this to order. Before I look for adoption of the agenda, I just want to say a quick hello to the newest member of the senior leadership team, our Protective Service Director and Fire Chief, Mac de Beaudrap. Welcome to the team, Mac.
Thank you very much. I'm quite excited to be here.
Right on. Okay, Council, any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Administration, any changes or additions?
Nothing from administration.
All right, then I'll look for a motion to adopt. Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the Standing Committee meeting agenda for May the 11th, 2021.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. That moves us forward to Citizens Minute with Council. Ms. Anderson, anybody in the queue?
No one has registered for Citizens Minute with Council.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to delegations and presentations. We have one delegation this evening, tourism funding presented by Kelly Armstrong, Garth Griffiths, and Justin Woodley.
And Ms. Armstrong has not joined the meeting. Oh, there she is. Never mind, sorry.
All right.
How are you guys doing?
Not bad. The floor is yours whenever you are ready.
For sure. Okay, I will start for us. So I don't see Garth on there. He said he would be here, but I can't see everyone that's on the screen. So if you can just let me know if he's there by any chance.
He has not joined the meeting.
Okay, he was just driving last time I spoke to him, so he might be a couple minutes late. So hello, everybody. I did send through some information regarding what we'd like to speak to you about. And the presentation has to do with starting a DMO here in Hinton. So if you would like, if you could please start that for us, Wendy, that would be fantastic.
Heart in the central hub of the Alberta Northern Rockies. Let's take a minute and talk about tourism versus a visitor's economy. Visitors economy. Visitors are what fuel our visitors economy, a term that is much broader than tourism. Hinton's visitors economy encompasses the direct visitor spending in the destination and the indirect induced economic activity as a result. The visitor economy matters. It is what helps us all work. Tourism. Tourism is more of a person-centered concept of a tourist, and a visitor's economy is concerning the whole economic environment that a tourist and other visitors interact with. How can we develop Hinton into a preferred destination to drive our visitors' economy when people choose to visit the Alberta Northern Rockies? Create a future map, a plan to success. Who should be involved in creating a sustainable plan that drives the visitor's economy? The town, the county, direct businesses, indirect businesses, community members, adventure tour groups, all of the above. Hinton in the Alberta Northern Rockies Destination Stewardship has took the liberty of starting a destination management plan, a DMP, but we cannot do this alone. This document is just the beginning. Who executes the destination management plan? There are many ways a DMP can be executed. Most commonly, a Destination Management Organization, a DMO, is created to oversee the plan. Who would make up the DMO? What could that look like? Well, there are many different ways that DMOs are successfully ran. There is no absolute right answer, just what is right for our community. Here are a few examples of what have worked in other towns. The town takes the role of the DMO. The town chamber executes as a DMO on behalf of the town or board. A board is created of direct and indirect businesses of the visitors economy, community members, adventure tour operators, town administration, and or town councillor. Where does the money come from for the DMO to execute the DMP? First thing we should discuss is sustainability. A DMP should be built to look 3 to 5 years into the future and be revised at least once a year and adjust to where needed. The plan can change, the goal remains the same. We are all building Hinton's destination brand that will last for years to come. How can we possibly raise money to start a new organization in Hinton like a DMO? How much will this DMP cost? Where do we even start? Municipal funding, constant funding built in to a yearly budget to grow Hinton's visitors economy and destination brand. Consistent. Membership fees. These can vary from year to year. Only 50% of DMOs have memberships now, not consistent. Fee for services, e-commerce website. Click-throughs from purchase with a fee collected by the DMO, not consistent. Destination marketing fee is fee charged to the guest collected by mostly hotels in a community, but could be any businesses. Under the Municipal Government Act, municipalities do not have the authority to implement a DMF. It is unreliable as the economy shifts up and down. There is no guarantee that the fees collected by a DMF go to a DMO. That is up to the DMF board. This does have governance on how it's spent, but it's not mandated to fund a DMO, not consistent. Stakeholders' contributions. Pledges can change year over year, not consistent. Pay to play. Events organized by the DMO collect funds from participating businesses. Unreliable that events will happen year over year, not consistent. Short-term rentals, create a tax or business license for short-term rentals to create extra income for the town that has not been accounted for in the budget. Not consistent, but would be good for seed money to start a DMO. The start of a conversation of a plan. Hinton in the Northern Rockies Destination Management Plan from the perspective of direct businesses, indirect businesses, and tour operators in Hinton. Vision, strategically position and develop Hinton's brand in the Alberta Northern Rockies region to become an enticing destination offering genuine, unique, authentic, cultural heritage, and nature-based visitor experiences. The mission, to collaboratively foster the development of the visitors economy in Hinton as a vital, sustainable economic development strategy, which encompasses a multitude of unique experiences and opportunities for visitors and locals alike. To promote visitor experiences that start in the town of Hinton while protecting the natural elements and environments for future generations to enjoy. The objective, support Hinton's development of a market-ready visitor experience while at the same time promoting Hinton's brand as a whole to grow visitation, educate our existing visitors on what else Hinton has to offer, and therefore bolster our visitors economy. The goal, the intention is to drive the visitors economy brand Hinton as a preferred destination in the Alberta Northern Rockies and add to the residents' quality of life. Elements of each goal will be implemented in the near term or midterm and are represented in the action plan items within the Hinton and the Northern Rockies Destination Management Plan. Goal setting. Number 1, implement a destination management plan in Hinton to improve destination coordination, collaboration, and cohesiveness. 2, improve the visitor's experience while in Hinton. 3, increase visitation to the Hinton area as a preferred destination in the Alberta Northern Rockies. 4, increase resident quality of life by supporting, improving recreational infrastructure. This is a pivot point for the town of Hinton, the businesses that drive the Hinton economy, and the residents that call Hinton home. This is a great start on how we can collectively start building Hinton's brand as a preferred destination in the Alberta Northern Rockies. We can transition from tourism to a thriving visitors economy that will strengthen the town's position to attract businesses, stakeholders, and key organizations that are like-minded to the Hinton brand. Good times can conceal opportunities that bad times can reveal. The Hinton and the Alberta Northern Rockies stewardships thank you for your time and hope that you will utilize our group of Hinton business owners that are willing to help create a strategic strategy on how to develop a DMP and DMO for our town of Hinton. Thank you.
All right. So that was our presentation. I was hoping that you guys would get it sooner so you could kind of digest it, because it is a lot of information all at once for everyone. So I guess, how can we help?
Okay, with that asked, I'll send it over to council to see if there's any response to that direct question, and also see if there's any questions for the delegation.
Sounds great.
Councilor Magoon, did I see your hand there?
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah, I guess really my first question is just as a, an initial glance. The first question I really have is sort of like the ideal governance and direction that would be set forward with this sort of board. Has there been any discussion amongst yourselves about what format you'd like to see the governance model take? Like whether it's a board-led situation as you had outlined, or, or council or community oriented? What sort of discussion did you guys have about that?
So I think for the most part, I'm just going to back that up for a second, because in reviewing how many times a DMO has been tried to start in Hinton, the key thing that I found that I haven't found that is missing is the actual plan. So to me, once the plan is made, that is where you have a group. So this is how we sat down and we came up with a plan that would work for us, but that does not mean it's going to work for the town. There's probably going to be more. So I think the plan would be first, and then from that would come how the organization will actually evolve and what works from us from that. So we did put in some key points there for vision, mission, stuff like that, but that would be something that would have to come back to you guys to review to see if you're wanting to add in onto that. And then that's where the collaboration part comes in. So what you're seeing is just what you have from owners in Hinton right now. In our group, we have Melanie, who represents the Green Square. We had Eric, that was from the Valley. We had Garth Griffiths, Justin, myself, Pete, lots of different business owners from town. Sorry if I forgot anyone off the top of my head. But yeah, and this is what we've come up with. So that would be my first thing, would be not to worry about who's going to run it, what the governance looks like. I think that will come after the plan is then. That is my opinion. Justin, do you have anything that you'd like to add on that one?
No, I would agree with that. That plan is essential to, and which has never been there. We need to have that first, and once we get that in place. But ultimately, I would see a board made up of different groups of people running this.
Councilor Magoon.
I have more, but if you could put me back in queue.
Sure will.
Thanks.
Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for being here. Any chance we could get a copy of that presentation we just heard?
Yeah, I believe, Wendy, would you be able to send that out to everybody? I think Natalie dropped off a hard copy for us because we had a hard time opening it.
I will forward it after the meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Good. And I do have a question. So have you met with HREDC, Hinton's, I think it's Hinton's Regional Economic Development Group?
So I believe Garth is part of that, and I have spoken to a few people that have been on the board previous. I have not been on that board, so no. I talked to Brian, I believe, who used to be part of it. So, but no, I have not spoken to them directly or been part of their meetings at all.
Okay, hey, thank you.
I have Councillor Magoon and then Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, thank you. You know, just trying to circle back to your initial question to us after the presentation wrapped up. I'm really excited for the concept of moving forward with something like this. One of the ongoing discussions I know that I've had in the last several weeks has been, you know, what are some of the challenges that our local businesses are facing, you know, of course, due to COVID, but also what are the opportunities moving on into the future? And the big thing that I constantly come back to in these discussions is the importance of having, in this case, a plan that's driven by our businesses where there's a lot of say and ownership from the grassroots. You know, the thing I'm not a big fan of is big plans by organizations who don't have boots on the ground and don't have any skin in the game. And I sort of say that half jokingly, but the people who are experts in the field should be the ones who have the biggest, you know, the biggest say in giving us some direction democratically on what the best plan is economically for our community. And I think we as a council and a community and a municipality really have to have our ears open to that. So that's actually the part that I'm most excited is to hear the ideas that everyone else has that we can all build off of. So thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Nelson and then Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question comes from page 3 of the presentation. There's the yellow spot with a bunch of X's that talks about the financial investment over 4 years. Really, what is the range of dollar figure that a DMO would be looking at to get it going? And then at what point does the transition from funding leave the town and start with a proper DMF that the hotels are taking in that funding and then basically being their own organization? Like, are we talking 5,000 or 50,000 or 500,000?
So Justin, do you want to answer this or?
Kelly, go ahead. If you want to start that, I can.
Sure. So I went and changed that yellow and put some X's in it when I realized that we were the only ones that had a plan. So it is really hard to gauge the dollar amount that that would need to start. If you're asking me for my opinion, I could give you my opinion, and it would be my personal opinion. What I have heard in the past from other people is they were looking for $300,000 to get it started. But I believe with everything that Travel Alberta has out there right now, there will be a more manageable number. And this is just depending on which way that you go. If you had another organization that you could run the DMO through that is already set up. Just for example, if you were to use the chamber, you already have people in the chamber that are working with the businesses on tourism. They help get grants already. It would be easy enough to utilize one of their employees to directly help with the DMO part. So Dooley, are you asking me directly my opinion of how we could do it?
I think if I could, Mr. Chair, we go into budget conversations early and have an idea. Is it, 300 a year? Is it, like what, if we're saying we're serious about getting a DMO kicked off and we want to do it right, ultimately our biggest opportunity as a council is to make sure there's budget available for that. And just having an idea of where to start that conversation during budget process is something I think that would be helpful.
Is that all, Councillor Nelson?
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Haas and then Councillor Magoon.
Okay, I got actually a couple of questions, but I'll just start with one. One of them actually was about the money as well. Just some thoughts on moving forward. What would be a budget that would be a ballpark figure? I guess one question that came up, or one that I just want to ask about, and maybe it's just for also our community to understand, because if council and the municipality decide to budget this, one of the things that I saw was how would this add, it would add to residents' quality of life. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit to help citizens understand how such a plan and organization would benefit the quality of life of our residents?
Yeah, for sure. So quality of life, the way that the visitors economy works, it's a trickle-down effect. So in my opinion, when we have visitors in rather than tourists in, the hotels are busy right now with CN in. They are visitors. They go get their haircut, not right now, sorry. But it has a trickle-down effect into all of the other aspects of Hinton, which I believe will drive the economy more, which can help with more sponsorship, I guess, from businesses and wanting to develop more, like say a big splash park or something like that. I think too, when it comes to the government of Alberta, they're looking for a lot of cohesiveness in having a DMO. A DMO can actually apply for actual other funding as well, and it's more welcomed from the government coming from the source of the businesses as opposed to just the municipality. And also speaking to what you said, ballpark figure, when our group sat down, we did take a look at it and we figured just from our group, not listening to what other people have put forward, that we could probably help at about $60,000 would be the initial asking for it. And we were looking at our plan to last about 4 years until we can get our feet underneath us. Our hospitality industry has been devastated. We don't have extra right now to put in. And I know everything I see is that council is really trying to help support the businesses at this time. And for us, that's why we started getting together, was because how can we help support our community as well? So I hope that answers that.
Oh, thank you. And if I could go back in the queue, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Just before we move on to Councillor Magoon, for those of you who can't see the whole screen, just wanted to welcome Mr. Griffiths to the conversation. And with that said, on to Councillor Magoon and then Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelly, Justin, Garth, one of the questions that I would have for you is part of your discussions. One of the things I've talked about with a number of other small business owners lately has been the desire for essentially, call it a media outreach plan, just a plan that's aimed at sort of spreading the word and spreading knowledge to people about what businesses are in Hinton, what opportunities people have to engage with the business sector in town, what they have to offer. Has that been part of your discussions at all, or am I getting too specific? Like we haven't even touched the details of the plan and what the public relations aspect might look like, or the commercial outreach aspect might look like? Could you speak to that at all?
Well, you know what, I can maybe just add something to it, Ryan. Just the whole idea behind this is that we would be doing a lot of advertising and create an awareness of what we do have in Hinton. So the hotels and the restaurants and stuff that are here. When you belong to a group like this, that's what our whole job is. We're a marketing group. So you're reaching out to, everywhere that you can to get people to come to Hinton. And I think that's what most, Kelly, you know this probably better than I do, but there's a lot of communities that have this kind of an organization.
Yeah.
The chambers do it too, and others do it as well. But we're more specific. We're more going after the tourism aspect. We're a little bit more focused. I hope that makes sense, Ryan.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Thank you.
And if I can just add to that too, that is all part of branding Hinton and who Hinton is, right? All these businesses that are here that are unique. And when you look at Hinton in the Alberta Northern Rockies, we have a lot of amenities that other places don't have. We can do a lot of different things that other places cannot do. And we would be able to build that and market that. So Hinton comes into its own brand. And I think that's really where it's important that we work with council on this as well, rather than just fully focused on us, because we are branding or looking at branding the town. We want to make sure that we're going in the right direction and something that is going to be sustainable as well in the brand as well. So thank you.
All right, Councilor Magoon.
Yeah, that's good. I have one more if I could go back and do.
You bet. Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelly, Justin, Garth, thanks for your time. I really appreciate the information you provided. It's, albeit a lot of information, it's linear and it helps, I think, many people who struggle with this. Now, I find it fairly clear. You have X amount of dollars. We'll fill in that number. 300,000, I know, is your suggestion.
No, that's not my suggestion. I'm sorry to interrupt. That was from before.
Well, so let's use a simple number as an example. So there's a plan for 4 years. Let's say it's $100,000 goes into this. Now that's 400,000 over 4 years. There's objectives that are lined up in here that we follow in order to promote, develop, and brand our community. Awesome. How does this transition into potentially a DMF, or how does this funding continue in the 5th and 6th and continuous years after that? What does that look like, and how does that handoff happen?
For sure. Can I answer to this? Are you guys okay with that? So the thought with it was just to get us up and going. So I know there's lots of talk of a DMF, but you can see in the presentation, a DMF is not always sustainable on its own. So in having all of those different pieces put together, I think that we will find very much so sustainability, and we will have extra that we will be able to perhaps, like we said, with a splash park or something, go in and help create these great attributes that Hinton will have that will help us all. I mean, when we're looking at a splash park, it doesn't directly send hotel people, but it's that what else that comes in, right? You know, they stop for an ice cream, they're spending money at the Old Grind or whatever. It's just developing that visitors economy. The other thing that I didn't mention in there was the visitor, I can't remember what it's called, the visitor location that had funding before. Now that has been really developed in other communities where I've seen where they're called experience centers now, and they can actually become their own little economic e-commerce site of their own, where they can go in and actually be able to book things as they're coming through, as they're staying, in hindsight, and that could be another way of bringing in money. So we have multiple lines of revenue that can come in. We just need to start. There's many ways that we can do this, and all are viable together.
All right, thank you for
Thing.
the clarity. I appreciate that, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right.
Thanks.
All right, Councillor Haas and Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I guess a quick question about the chamber. You mentioned about how if you had a stable organization. So I can't recall, but in the presentation, but have you spoke to the chamber and had this kind of conversation with, the potential that they see with this, and would they be an organization that would consider some of the leadership of this?
So Natalie does sit on our board with us because she does represent all the businesses. She did say that they would be on board if we had a plan and we were able to go through. That being said, there is other ways that we could do it as well through community futures. There's also another example would be Stettler has a board of trade that it goes through. It's like a separate part of the community. So I guess there's multiple ways you can do it, and all have said, yes, let's move ahead. How can we go forward? And that's what we're here for today. How do we do this?
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. Last question. It's just, this is an area obviously that I think, we really do need to invest in as a community. So if you were to suggest a community for me to go and do extra research on, is there a particular area or community who has a DMO that you would identify as that was a super successful one? Just go have a look, maybe don't get hitched to their model or how they did it, but go get a feel for, what was accomplished. Who would I go look at? Do you have any suggestions for me?
I have a couple, but Garth, do you have any that you can think of?
Well, I'm thinking more of the Canmores. That would be one that to me would be an appealing one, or Drumheller, those kind of places. But that's just suggestions.
Yeah, another one that I would have to add to that would be Waterton. Waterton has really developed itself and brought things forward. Again, I don't think it's a cookie cutter fit. I think Hinton is unique in its own ways, and we have so many great aspects that we can utilize. So we're situated perfectly. We just need a plan to execute and to get started executing so we can really get it going and maintain it as well, right? So I think that's the big thing, is the sustainability, because it's a brand that we're building. And as fast as you build a brand, if we don't stay on that track and think ahead even 10 years down the road, it can go off track very easily. And that is not what we want. We want to attract businesses to come and work in our area. We want visitors to come, whether they're touring or coming to visit their husband here while they're working and stuff. We just want to build our community.
I think.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Tyler, can I add something real quick?
Go ahead, Mr. Griffiths.
The thing I was just going to mention is that we've been for a long time trying to get the hotels and restaurants and stuff together to help promote our community from a tourism point of view. And I think this might be a good start. So if there's a way we can work together and come up with a plan to do this, I think it's probably I don't know how much exactly, I don't know how much money the town has right now or whether you're in that position, but going forward, I think we've been trying to do this for a long time. And it seems like we've got some hotel people involved now that really want to push this. So this might be an opportune moment.
Thank you, sir. I have Councillor Race in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to Kelly, Justin, and Garth, when I think of a DMF, I think of the hotel is all involved, and they're collecting, a percentage of money for every stay, and that money goes back into our community. With the DMO or DMP, are the hotels still involved, or is it the hotels and a lot of businesses in town? So what is the difference?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Well, I can speak on the difference between a DMO and a DMF. A DMO is the organization that executes the plan. A DMF would just be one source of funding that could come to the the DMO. See, it's been confusing for me and I live this life. The only thing is that we're stuck on right now is we see it. In our group, we have Scott Sunderwald as well as Garth and Natalie, and everyone in our group sees how great a DMO could be. We just don't have the exact one funding right now. And in looking at it, there's multiple ways we can do it. We just need to get started right now. When we're looking at this summer coming up with everything that's going on, we're going to have a lot of people that are going to want to visit our area. Everything outside of those windows, when you're pulling in, I am in Hinton, I pulled in today, my heart starts racing. I am free. It is beautiful. You're letting go of everything. And I think people are really going to be around this summer. So if we can get it kickstarted, I think we will be way farther ahead. We have had talks with Travel Alberta as well. And if we can get something going there, definitely willing to take a look at how they would be able to help us develop our region here. So.
Okay, good. It seems like we have the right people in place. So this could be very exciting for our community.
We're pretty excited.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, anything else for our delegation? Councillor Haas.
I guess just one quick question to the group. And by no means am I not saying not the municipality wouldn't. I mean, that's a decision of council and the municipality. But what if we weren't to fund this? What would be your contingency? It sounds like you're pretty, want to move forward with this. Any thoughts on that?
It's a good question.
I mean, if I may, I'm really excited. I think this is a great initiative. I think you've got, you've presented in a way that's very beneficial to everyone. I see a lot of good things that can come from this, potentially even new businesses coming to our community, to be included into the tourism. I'm just wondering, what is, if there is a contingency?
So to me, if this doesn't go through, our people will still sit together. We will try and obtain funding. I don't know if that's possible. By the time we create a society or have something that will be able to flow through, we will miss out on a lot of opportunity of help from the government, the Alberta government. And also you go ahead faster when everyone works together. To me, it's not a collaboration if the town is not involved in it. And if we are able to get our feet underneath us right now is what we need to do. We know what we need. We're asking you because we need help right now. And we have a plan that we've put forward. So we believe that it would be great to invest in the businesses and again, the brand of the town. So yeah. Okay. I don't know if that answers your question or not. We'll still keep plugging along. It won't be as fast and as furious as what we would be able to do with the support of the town.
Oh, and if I may, Mr. Chair, no, I appreciate the answer. I mean, I realize, I think, the collaboration between, to get things moving and quite frankly, I mean, there's a lot of, when think of strategic planning, a lot of things that check the box with a type of group like this, not only for businesses in our community, but our town as a whole. But I just thought I'd, ask, knowing that you are dedicated to this and, it definitely would slow things down, of course. So, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, I have Councillor McGoon in the queue, and I'd just like to remind council that we've been on this delegation item about 40 minutes now, and we do have more agenda items and then a couple other meetings in the queue tonight. So if give everyone one more question each, and then we will move on with our agenda. Councillor McGoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm trying to work into that direction. Basically, Kelly, Justin, Garth, I think the question, at least on my mind for tonight is, what could or should council do at this point if it was the will of council to move this forward? And in my mind, I see one of two routes potentially is that, it could be a direction of council to have our economic development officer, work with the committee that you've got going together to bring something back to council that we could discuss, or council could, if it was council's will, to put forward a direction tonight or next week, where we bring it back to a standing committee to discuss with a little bit more time and substance around it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I'll take that one. The one thing that I can add, and Garth, you might know who I'm talking about. I have a very good friend of mine that I follow on social media, and he has his own business, and it's called 13 Ways, and his name is Doug Griffiths. And so he goes out and he has spoke to many communities and helped them to move forward. If that is something that you guys would like to have more information and factual outside of how it's worked in other places to move forward, he said he would come in and spend a half an hour with council when they have time to answer any questions, so you know directly where you can go to look, so it wouldn't take as much time for a yes or no. More than happy to work with Scott on if you guys have a plan or what your thoughts are. Town would have to have some sort of thought. I know you guys had in your strategy from 2019, I read, that you had tourism on there as one of your strategic strategies. So I imagine there's probably something somewhere that we can align with our plan to make it go forward faster. I think Doug might be a great tool to use, where he could take both and be like, hey, this might work for you guys. And I know he knows the region quite well as well.
If you don't mind, if I can add to that, Kelly, I think that's a very good suggestion. Kelly's pointing me in that direction to Doug as well. And I think he'd be a wonderful resource.
Mr. Chair, if I may just wrap up by building on that.
Yep.
I have a lot of faith in our agenda committee, being chaired by, of course, our acting CAO, our deputy mayor, and the mayor, to establish points of discussion for our council meetings. I think at this point, if the agenda setting committee was to discuss that and let council know what the best appropriate next steps might be, I would certainly support that if that was the will of council. So I'll just throw it out there to the rest of council to see how they feel.
Are you asking individual councilors to express their intention, Councillor Magoon?
Just as a point of clarification, yeah, certainly in a way, I would like to hear from at least the members of the agenda setting committee if they think that this is, an important enough topic to discuss at the agenda prep meetings to establish how this might come towards council to be discussed, or if they feel that that needs to be solidified by a direction of council, because we've seen it come both ways. Different items come back to council both ways before.
Okay. Mayor Michaels or Ms. Howarth, do you want to?
Oh, Ms. Howarth?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to council. So we do have quite a lineup for May and June. We could the next meeting we could just we could get that in there. We have deferred the short-term rental workshop for council as well, so you have a full agenda then. Your June is looking very full as well. On the 15th, or sorry, on the 8th, you have 11 or 12 agenda items as well as 2 delegations, and the 15th of June there could be some room on there. The other thing that if I may take this opportunity to suggest to council, is that another opportunity for you to consider is the civic agency process. We do have a report, an inventory report coming to council, probably standing committee, I should say, in June as well. This would fit into that process quite well, and may be something council wants to consider in addition to the options that Councillor Magoon suggested.
Thank you, Ms. Howarth. Anything to add, Mayor Michaels?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I like where Councillor Magoon was going. I think tonight, after hearing this, the only latitude the agenda prep committee could do is to add a discussion item to this. But if we're looking for a report and information item, I don't know what we could do. I think we try to reassess, kind of make sense of everything tonight and see what information we want administration to provide us for the decision-making process to move this along. And essentially whether that's a report or something coming directly from administration, because I don't know what Mr. Kovach is thinking regarding this on their part. So whether the genesis is administration or council, I think whether it's June 15th, I would see that as our latest target date to bring at least something in front of council to start that conversation is my thoughts.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Magoon?
Yeah, certainly. I think it does. I think what I'm hearing is that there's an opportunity for administration to bring this forward through civic agencies. And as the mayor mentioned, there's certainly an opportunity to bring it through various agenda items prior to the 15th of June. So either way, as long as it makes it back to council for discussion prior to the heat of summer, you know, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Council, anything else for the delegation? All right. No one else in queue. I want to thank you all for presenting tonight and giving us a lot of information to mull over, and I look forward to having the discussion continue down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks.
Okay. Moving along on the agenda, action items. Action item number 1, timeline for key financial deliverables. And I will pass it over to Ms. Howarth to kick it off.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waugh, through to Council Committee. As you know, there were several financial deliverables in the queue for the next few months. And so administration compiled a list of the key deliverables and explored each one in terms of the current date that perhaps council had placed on it when they directed it. We also took a look at it based on what would make sense to come first in order for the right information to come in the right order. And also, of course, the resources and supports that we have available to present these to council in that sort of orderly fashion and in order for you to support your decision making. So the proposed timeline offers 5 key deliverables between May and August of this year. So we're looking at May 11th, which is today, just to get some direction to implement a proposed timeline. Then we would move on to June 8th, where council would receive the reports that examine the 2020 surplus as well as the emergency response reserve. On to June 15th would be the year-to-date financials, and that would be a 4-month versus the anticipated 3-month reporting that we typically hope to do. Into July would be the 3-year operating plan, and that's the outstanding item that was directed back in February to just simply bring that plan forward for decision. And then ending in August 24th, where that is the new date we have been provided by the auditors of when they are able to finish up and pull our work together. So while we have all of our information to them by mid-June, they require approximately at least 6 weeks to take a look at and prepare that information for presentation to council. So at this time, administration recommends that you directed us to implement the timeline as we've proposed it, as well as to amend any of the council action pending list items that align with this timeline. I have Mr. Osmond has joined the meeting as well to assist in any questions and answers. Thank you.
All right, council, over to us. Any questions for administration? Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the timeline set out on July 6th, the presentation of the 3-year operating plan, Just a question for administration. Is it the plan of administration to take into account the directions set forth by council in March? Forgive me on the date, but I believe it was March of 2020, which set out the specific limits, the percentile limits on the operating plan increases over the successive years. Thanks.
Ms. Howarth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to Councillor Magoon. So I believe you are probably referring to the 3 years to bring back a 3-year budget with no more than 4% each year. Okay. And so of course, administration did present that 3-year plan to council at the beginning of the 3-year process. And in order to get the 2021 budget to where council liked it, and the community could accept that, we had to push certain things out that caused compounded increases into 2022 and 2023. I know when this was presented again on February 16th, I want to say, of this year, there was some discussion, and I think there was also a motion made. I don't have all the action list in front of me, but I believe it's to bring back, I think, a 3% to 2022. And other than that, the only other action, or sorry, direction that administration received at that time was to bring the plan to regular for a decision. And so there was no other indication that other changes were expected to be made to that, other than the fact that it is simply a plan, and that now new 3-year plan will be totally revised and revamped with whatever direction this or the next council provide. And if I may, invite Mr. Osmond to round out that answer if I missed any key points.
Mr. Osmond.
Thank you very much. I think you hit off all the important points. Essentially, what I can see looking back through the minutes and the agenda packages provided is that there's a piece here to close the loop. So the MGA requires that council provide, when they do the budget, a 3-year. Typically what's done is it's a year of budget and what's referred to as 2 years of plan. And these got separated in the process. The last motion that I could see requested from standing committee that the budget be brought back as presented for council to make a decision. And so without that piece, there's still an open connection on the process that we need to close up. So that's our intention with that. And as we progress towards that date, we'll all be able to get some more work on the specifics of it. And if there's any further direction, we can accommodate that in the report we bring back.
Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, I have just grabbed that other motion that was made on the same evening on February 16th. So the action in the queue right now is that administration bring forward a 2022 draft budget with a maximum 3% tax increase. That is item 2199 of your action pending list. And that due date is for December, as that will be brought forward as the first year of the new 3-year budget. So that is the 3% on the first year. The second motion made that night was the one presented in this report, or sorry, is to simply bring back the 3-year operating plan as presented to a regular council. So that's why in July that there's not an awful lot of additional information, if any, that's going to come back at that time. It's pretty much bringing back exactly what you saw as presented in February.
Councillor Magoon, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, Mr. Chair. And I did want to thank one of our colleagues also sent me a copy of that same MD for my own reference. So thank you to administration and thank you to our colleague who sent that to me. And then if I could get back in queue, please, Mr. Chair.
There is currently nobody else in queue, so fire away, Councillor Magoon.
Okay, thank you very much. This one's pretty simple. My assumption is yes, but just for anybody who's watching at home, The timeline that we've been presented with, it fits it within all of our responsibilities as per the MGA in getting that second piece, that operating plan, and the rest of our procedures sort of in line with what the provincial regulations and expectations are, correct?
Ms. Howarth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Councillor Magoon. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Nobody else in queue, and we don't have a direction on the board yet, Council. Councillor Magoon?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make the motion that committee direct administration to implement the timeline for key financial deliverables as presented and amend the due dates of all related financial items in the council action pending list to align with these timelines.
All right, and would you care to speak to that, Councillor Magoon?
Just very briefly, Mr. Chair. No, I appreciate the report. The timeline, of course, barring any concerns from the rest of council, which I'm very happy to listen to, the timeline seems quite reasonable. We're within the boundaries of the MGA as presented, and it moves us forward to taking care of some of our business from this financial year. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, there's a direction on the board. Any discussion or debate? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Anderson, if we could get the direction up on the screen.
It's in the chat, just in the chat there.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, ma'am. All right. That committee direct administration to implement the timeline for key financial deliverables as presented and amend the due dates of all related financial items in the council action pending list to align with these timelines. All those in favor? That passed unanimously. Anything else from this action item, council? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the next item. And that is draft council procedure bylaw number 1153 review. Ms. Howarth.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waugh. So this item is before standing committee following the recent amendments that were made to the draft council procedure bylaw 1153 back on April 20th of this year. As you can see, the revisions were made by committee have been incorporated into the bylaw. And so at this time, administration is recommending that the attached draft bylaw receive legal review. And that after that, it be brought back to a future standing committee to receive, so that standing committee can see the results of that legal review and that you can provide any final direction at that time. I have Ms. Rendell here as well to assist me in answering any questions that committee may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Council, any questions for administration? Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To administration, I wanted to ask why a legal review as opposed to a parliamentarian review?
Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to invite Ms. Rendell to respond to that, please.
Thank you. A legal review will provide, well, our legal counsel is the one who provided us a draft copy of the bylaw. And also when we have issues or any seek clarification, we also turn to our legal counsel. So we feel that it's best that it goes for a legal review. Municipal affairs also, when anytime we do a bylaw or anything up, they also suggest it has a legal review.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Race, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Excellent. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that committee direct administration to bring council procedure bylaw number 1153 to a standing committee meeting for final, let's see here. If I could just give me a second. I need to go back to my working document. There we go. I'd like to move that committee direct administration to bring council procedure bylaw number 1153 to a standing committee meeting for final direction after a legal review has been completed. And then again, just to speak to that very briefly, Mr. Chair, I think procedurally, this is just an important step that we have to take in going through the documentation, because ultimately the test that we have to pass with any of our bylaws is that it is in line with the MGA and other legal obligations of the town. And this is that point where we get that important input before bringing this back for final decision. Thank you.
All right, we have a direction on the board, and I have Councillor Nelson in the queue. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually won't be supporting this. I look at the last few months, and really a procedural bylaw is to ensure good governance. And where I'm struggling is with the number of meetings per month. Earlier in the meeting, it was said we've got 11 or 12 action items at our first regular in June. 3 of the 4 months this year, we've either added a regular or called a special in order to handle the amount of work that needs to be done. We ultimately approved a calendar that reflected 1 regular council meeting a month. And I haven't seen that lead to good governance or better governance or an improved ability to reach out to citizens. I haven't seen it help decision-making. So with the procedural bylaw that sticks to that, I won't support it, because the next council, that's what their calendar is going to be based off of. And I just, it's a test that we're still early on, but I haven't seen it improve things, I think, the way that we were expecting when we approved that calendar. So I won't be speaking in favor of it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I have Councillor Magoon, Councillor Ostashik, and then Mayor Michaels.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly, I agree and share Councillor Nelson's concerns. My question for council or administration, whoever wants to remind me, when council last changed the number of meetings, did we send the procedural bylaw to legal for review when we changed simply the number of meetings? Because I don't remember that we did. So if you could just clarify that for me, that would be great. Thanks.
I'll pass that over to administration. Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to, oops, lost track. Was that Councillor Magoon? Okay, thank you. No, we did not send it for legal review at that time.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could just further that comment along then.
Proceed.
Then in this case, I would still support sending the document for review, because a legal review has to be completed. That being said, as an additional part, I would also, either now or at a later date, support changing it back to the number of meetings that we used to have. So again, I think we can accomplish both with passing this evening and bringing it to legal review. Thank you.
Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. I too share some of the concerns that Councillor Nelson brought forward. I believe I actually find that council is significantly more challenged by having moved to 1 regular meeting a month, specifically in that we feel that we're often rushed to be able to make a decision in time for that regular meeting of council so that it doesn't delay the decision by a full month. So I very much share that concern. And I guess that leads me to a question for administration. And the question would be, is there any reason that an amendment to the proposed bylaw couldn't be made today and still have it go to legal by direction at this meeting? Thank you.
Over to administration. Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will revert to Ms. Randall for that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, you could make a direction to recommend that we change it change it back to the schedule, the prior schedule, and that there's 2 regulars in a month, like the 1st and 3rd or whatever. We can make that amendment and then send it for the legal review.
I could follow up then, Chairman Waugh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, seeing that that's the case, I would like to see if there's a consensus of council to change it back. I think we've had a long enough, pilot program to see if council feels that this is working well in its current structure or not. And I think if that's the will, that we should capture that will in the procedure bylaw and move it forward that way. So I might need some help with the wording of it, but I would like to make a motion to change the meeting schedule of regular and standing committee meetings back to the 2 of each per month. And that's ugly and awkward, but yeah, I more than welcome some comments to help streamline it, as long as the idea behind it is still there. Thanks.
Administration, could you help us out here? We do have a direction on the board right now. So I'm just curious about the chicken or the egg scenario. Can we pass what's on the board right now, or do we need to make the amendment first?
We can make the amendment first.
Okay. So do we need to postpone or withdraw the original one, or?
I would just put it forward as a proposed amendment, Chairman Law, if that's okay with administration to do it that way.
Ms. Howard, what would be your suggestion on how to proceed with this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We can certainly do that. Councillor Stashik's amendment can be voted on as presented there, and I think meeting schedule. Yes, yep. And then we can, once that's decided, then we can either add it or not to the original motion. Thanks.
Okay.
Right. Now, normally in summer, there's an exception to that. So just refer to the previous schedule, then that would include the breaks in summer.
If I may,
do you have
Mr. Chair?
Councillor Stashik?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was the intent, was to basically revert it back to the previous schedule that we had, which would include, I believe it was only one regular and one standing in the months of July and August. Whatever it was before would be fine. Thank you.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I think meeting schedule, the regular and standing committee meeting schedule, we can put that at the beginning, so that is it. And then because it's reverting back to the previous schedule, there is only one previous schedule, so that should not be confusing or misunderstood. So I think we're good.
Okay. I believe we do need a word after previous.
Previous one.
Back to the previous bylaw 1060-6.
Excellent suggestion, Ms. Rendell. So yes. Let us just offer this suggestion. Councillor Stashik, is that acceptable?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yep, Councillor Stashik.
I think as long as it's clear to administration what the intent of the amendment is, and that they understand, I'm fine with the wording of it. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Then we have an amendment on the board, council. Any discussion? Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm fully supportive of this. I appreciate the comments by both Councillor Nelson and Councillor Ostashik. I as well agree. I just don't think that one regular meeting a month and then a special meeting called, as needed has really filled the necessary gap to ensure solid and good governance. I think we need to go back to the way things were. Thank you.
Okay. Now, just to clarify, I had Mayor Michaels, Councillor Nelson, and Councillor Race in the previous queue before the amendment went on the board. Any of those councillors wish to speak to this amendment, or just keep you in the regular queue? Okay, let's go with Mayor Michaels and then Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things. I do support this. I appreciate council entertaining this trial. The only thing I just want to make sure procedurally, and I want to ask administration that since we're amending a successful motion, we'll need 2/3 support for this. I just want to clarify section 1514 of our current procedural bylaw. And just, it sounds like there is support, there will be 2/3, but I just want to clarify, since we're doing this on the spot, that procedurally, we don't have to deal with this another day for doing it incorrectly. So that's my only concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Howard, how locked in are we that we're okay legislatively?
I think we're okay, because we haven't voted on that, but I think Ms. Rendell, do we have?
No, they haven't. It's just an amendment that they're voting on now.
So voting on the amendment.
And also this is just being brought for discussion, and it's kind of like the motions from last time that we're implementing the change into the bylaw, and then it's going for legal review.
If I can add some clarity to what I was saying, my apologies, Mr. Chair and Sandra, but this was a motion passed. I'm referring to the org meeting from October of 2020, or I forget what month we had our org meeting now. That was a successful motion to change the meeting amounts. That's within a year. But that's my concern, is just procedurally that we've made a previous motion to change it, and to re-change that is my concern. And I'll lean on administration for their advice on it, but that was the intent of my concern. Thanks.
Okay. Administration?
I'll refer to Ms. Rendell, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. This is just changing the wording of the draft bylaw. So this is changing 1153 to include the 2 meetings per month. So if council going forward after tonight would like to revert back to their other schedule, they'll have to bring that motion to a regular council meeting for discussion.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mayor Michaels? Perfect. Councillor Race and then Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to say I will be supporting this amendment. I would like to thank Councillor Nelson for bringing this topic forward, and thank Councillor Ostashik for the amendment. I do have to say, just hearing that we would have 10, 11 action items at a regular council meeting, we get that information on a Friday at 4 o'clock. There's minimal, interaction with people over the weekend. So we basically have a day and a half to speak with admin, to speak with our citizens. So I am so grateful that Councillor Nelson brought this forward. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Following up on the mayor's point from earlier, we had motioned to approve a schedule, but we never actually motioned to change our procedural bylaw to reflect the single meeting. So we're actually totally okay. When I originally thought of bringing this forward, I looked at bringing the exceptional circumstances in order to rescind a motion, but we didn't actually move to change it. So it's a little bit odd. I'll obviously speak in favor of the amendment. I'm just struggling with the amendment versus the motion, because I also think there might be some other things that that happen with this, because it's not just as simple as amending that one section that changed the meeting schedule. It'll also change how we're chairing, likely, because we made adjustments to the chairing schedule so that the mayor was still chairing more than half of the meeting. So that would likely have to revert back. Likely would also revert back the when the agenda comes to council. So I'm wondering, I guess we can approve this amendment, and then I just don't know what the original motion is going to look like with this amendment on it. But there's probably a few other things that we'll need to consider as we make these changes. So thank you.
Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Councillor Waugh. If it seems like there's an appetite, and it kind of sounds like there is, and it probably is important to consider additional amendments, I would be more than willing to withdraw this amendment And then, possibly somebody would make a motion to postpone the original motion, and then I can put my amendment back up for discussion as a motion and not an amendment to the original. So if there's no opposition from council, I would withdraw my amendment with the understanding that it's going to come back as a motion if there's a motion to postpone the original. Thanks.
Okay, council, any opposition to Councillor Stashik withdrawing his amendment? Okay, seeing none. It is withdrawn. Councillor Nelson?
I'll move to postpone the motion on the floor until after some discussion.
All right. Administration, legislatively, that's all good? Okay. Can I, oh, there we are. All right. We have a motion to postpone the motion on the floor until after discussion. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, everyone, the screen changed. Can I get everyone to put their hands up again if they are in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Motion postponed. Council, Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move whatever the previous wording was. My apologies. I'd like to move that the regular and standing committee meeting schedule be reverted back to the bylaw 1060-6 schedule.
Okay. Councillor Nelson.
I had a clarifying question just to make sure we're all on the same page. We would still keep the existing schedule for up until the next org meeting. And if we need to call other meetings, we can call other meetings. The intent is basically this would come into effect when the recommended schedule comes out in October during the org meeting. Am I correct in that assumption?
Administration.
Whenever the new amended bylaw takes effect would be that case. And yes, I'm getting a nod from Ms. Rendell. So whenever this gets in front of regular council and the new bylaw is approved, that's when it will take effect. So if that's before the organizational meeting, then your new schedule begins then.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the wishing to speak to this motion? Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to confirm whether there'll be additional motions or if you wanted to add to this motion that that either the committee or administration make all other related changes that are required in that bylaw. As you mentioned, there could be other changes that are impacted by this decision, or if committee is going to methodically go through those right now and make those amendments yourself, or if you want to refer that back to your committee and the committee do that work and bring it forward again through administration. A few options there for you. Thank you.
Council, I'll direct that inquiry to council as a whole. Any thoughts on how you wish to proceed? Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the time being, I think I'd just like to let the motion stand as is. If there's a will of council to change the chair schedule or any other items, I'd prefer that come forward as a will of council and not just as simply across the board reversion back to the guidelines that were in bylaw 1060-6. So that's my preference. If somebody wants to amend, that's perfectly fine and within their right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, I will call it the question then. that the regular and standing committee meeting schedule be reverted back to the bylaw 1060-6 schedule. Council, all those in favor? Okay, that was unanimous. Councillor Nelson.
Like to make a direction that committee recommend that the council draft.
Can you wait 1 second, please?
That the draft council procedural bylaw be amended to, with changes to chairing, agenda timelines, and other items directly impacted by the motion to revert back to the bylaw 1060-6 schedule. I don't think I need to speak to it. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Howarth, I saw your hand up at some point before the screen changed.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you. I do need some clarification before this proposed direction is called to question. I guess, is the motion saying, or the proposed direction saying then that with basically everything that was in 1060-6 in regards to meetings is going to revert back to the same way that it was before? I guess that question's to Councillor Nelson, being that it's his direction request, and I'm not really sure how much this entails and what it entails.
Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Councillor Stashik. So just off the top of my head, from the time that we spent changing the bylaw to reflect one meeting, I believe the agenda notice schedule would likely change. This chairing schedule would likely change. We went from the mayor chairing regulars to now the mayor chairing the regular and the second standing. I believe there are parts with notices of motion that may need to change because those were adjusted to reflect only one opportunity a month to take care of those. So that's why I put directly, because it would take a bit to go through and make sure we've covered all of those things off. But the intent would be to keep the bylaw largely it is, but only those things that have to change. There might even been stuff with delegations as well. So yeah, off the top of my head, I can't list every single thing that changed, but the spirit is just those things directly impacted by the previous motion. So thank you.
Follow up,
Councillor
Mr. Chair,
Stashik.
please.
Yep.
Okay, understood. Yeah, and I do agree. Some of the stuff that, like meeting schedules and notice periods, and that has to fall in line. But then there's some other stuff too that would be a discretionary call, specifically the chairing of the meetings. Council did make a motion to change that. So changing it back, if that's the intent of this motion, then sure, I'd like it to be captured in the motion though, so administration has clear direction, so they're not making a discretionary call. That should be a will of council, and I'm not sure what maybe some of the other ones would be things that have to get changed because they're, it's mandatory to be compliant. Yeah, agreeing with Councillor Nelson, there is potentially a lot in there that could be impacted that we may not be seeing right off the hop here. But the chairing of the meetings thing, that's definitely something that would be a discretionary call that I'd like to be addressed by council. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Nelson, Magoon, and Mayor Michaels.
I saw some other hands pop up there. So I just from me that brought the motion forward, I'd happily withdraw if people want to make individual motions, but it also ties into the original motion that was postponed. in that if council wants this to go to a legal review right now, then we probably do have to go through all of these things, and we're probably going to miss some. But if the intent is for it to either refer to the committee again or come back to another standing committee meeting, then I think we can take care of it with just that kind of more general direction. So, but if there's a desire for me to withdraw so we can make a bunch of, I'm fine with that too. So, but a lot of that hinges on what the next step is for council. So thank you.
Councilor Magoon, then Mayor Michaels.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just throw this out to council if you think procedurally there's a better way. I'm very happy to support the motion on the floor. But then subsequently, if we raise the postponed item and I simply withdraw it, then again, we can go back in the direction that was initially posed by Councillor Nelson, where, we bring this back either to the working group or to another standing committee to have those looks. I'm supportive either way. I'll be honest, I didn't expect the support from council to seek the changes to the dates. And it's something that I fully support. So let's do it right. And I'm happy to withdraw that if it comes back up. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Howarth, before I go to Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One suggestion administration has is perhaps in the motion that we're talking about right now is after the words direct or directly, we can talk about things that are logistical and legislated. So the logistical things are like the notices for meetings and things like that are, obviously if you have one more meeting or two more meetings a month, we have to notice them more and things like that. So it's just the logistical things, which would exclude things like who's chairing and in what order. That's not logistical. That's a different sort of level of decision of council. So I think the logistical and legislated direct changes that reverting back to that schedule implies into this proposed bylaw could almost therefore be done by administration and would not necessarily require the whole committee to get back together again, unless of course that's a direction of the committee to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, administration. Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what Councillor Magoon said and also Ms. Howard there. I'm indifferent. I can support Councillor Nelson's motion with adding the logistical part. These are only the necessary things, but I believe council would want to see this at another standing before it goes to legal with these major changes. So I'm good either way, either dissect this, or I think administration understands the intent is to go back to what we had previously. My only caveat is we had extensive discussion on, did we want the mayor to chair the public hearings? That was the only change. If we're going back to the old format, did we want that to be the one philosophical change that doesn't revert back? That would be my only question to council. I would support that. I believe I said it before. New deputy mayors, it's challenging. Sometimes it's their first meeting, and it's not ideal. But those are my thoughts. Thanks.
All right, council. I have no one else in the queue. Maybe we get a refresher on what's actually up on the board right now. Right now, we have the committee recommend that the draft council procedure bylaw be amended with changes to chairing, agenda timelines, and other items directly impacted by the motion to revert back to the bylaw 1060-6 schedule. Okay. Thanks for the refresher. Council, is there any discussion about how you wish to proceed forward? I know that administration had made some suggestions about putting legislative and logistical into the motion. Councillor Nelson, with it being your motion, any thoughts?
I think that's the idea of it anyway. So if that helps provide clarity, I'm fine with it. But I think that's Yeah, I'm happy to add if it's more comfortable for council, for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Council, any other discussion on the motion in front of us? Oh, wow.
Sorry, it's just the last part. I guess I didn't send the last one.
Okay.
The last.
All right. If there's no other discussion before council, then I'll call it to question that committee recommend that the draft council procedure bylaw be amended with changes to chairing, agenda timelines, and other legislative and logistical items directly impacted by the motion to revert back to the bylaw 1060-6 schedule. All those in favor? All right, that was unanimous. Okay. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor Michaels brought up a point about the mayor chairing public hearings, I believe it was. Yeah. And I think that does probably bear some further discussion, and I'd lead it off with a question to administration. If there's any legislative or maybe logistical reason why the deputy mayor is chair of public hearings rather than the mayor currently?
Administration?
None that we're aware of. Thank you.
If I could follow up then. Yep. If Mayor Michaels wants to move that would be fine. It would be something I would support. I think it makes sense that that the mayor chairs public hearings. They're fairly important. Sometimes they're quite involved. They can be intense. I think that is a role that the mayor should fill. So I'll throw it out to council for now. I've made enough directions and motions in the past few minutes, so I just wanted to speak to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Stashik, for that. I'd like to move that committee recommend that the draft council procedural bylaw be amended to reflect the mayor chairing public hearings. And I have nothing to add, and we'll see where council goes with this. Thank you.
Okay, we have a direction on the board. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not support this motion. I think it's important that the deputy mayors are able to do public meetings. If the mayor is away, not able to perform that function, the deputy mayor is going to have to step in anyway. And, when you look at the paperwork involved with a public hearing, the deputy mayor, the mayor, they have the wording right in front of them. They have the assistance of our Wendy. So I'd like to see it that the deputy mayor continues to do public hearings. You'll never get any better if you're not allowed to learn. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think in 99% of other areas, I would absolutely agree with Councillor Race on that in terms of building up capacity within council. However, in this single case, I will support the motion on the floor. And it's not because of the majority of the public hearings that happen. It's because of those unfortunately rare but very high intensity public hearings that potentially could divide a community or a neighborhood. I think those are the instances where you want the voice of council acting as the chair, and making sure that they're handling that particular meeting in a fashion that's fair and in line with the MGA. It's just, those really rare instances where I think that's really important. So I'll be supporting this moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, council, anyone else wishing to speak to the direction on the board? If not, then I will call it to question. That committee recommend that the draft procedure bylaw be amended to reflect the mayor chairing public hearings. All those in favor? All those opposed? Pass 6-1. Council, anything else for this item? Councillor Nelson.
Like to move to bring back the postponed motion.
Okay. Just waiting for that to come back. Would we be able to get that up on the postponed motion up on the board? Actually, I guess we got to call the vote on this one first. Sorry. So council, motion to raise the postponed motion. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And whenever, Mr. Chair, you get that motion back up, it hasn't been voted on yet. I would, if of course there's no opposition from council, I would like to withdraw it.
Okay. Council, any opposition to Councillor Magoon withdrawing the motion that we just brought back to the floor? Any opposition? Oh, Councillor Ostashik.
Sorry, not necessarily opposition. Question though. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that the changes that were made today requires that this come back to council for another standing committee review before it goes to legal. I think the direction that was given today is pretty clear and straightforward. And I may be comfortable just sending it to legal and then coming back to standing. Well, the motion that's actually on the board right now. So I would like to ask administration and council if they're comfortable with the direction and what's going to come back after legal review matches the discussion that was had here tonight. Thank you.
Okay. I guess first to start, I'll take it over to administration, Ms. Howarth, and then I have Councillor Nelson in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to the rest of the committee. Yes, that would be essentially option 2 in the report, which is to, instead of sending it to legal review as presented and then bringing it back to standing, we would make these amendments, we would send it to legal review, and then we would bring, of course, the results of all of that, compile it all at once to regular for a decision.
So, sorry, if I may, Mr. Chair. It was more to the motion that's already on the floor right now that Councillor Magoon's considering withdrawing. That I'm comfortable in the changes that we've dictated to administration today to allow that to go to legal and then come back to standing for final direction. So I'm questioning whether there's a need to withdraw this motion because I'm wondering what it would be replaced with.
Okay. I have Councillor Nelson first and then Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Something more procedural. I don't know if we could actually withdraw something without voting when it's already been postponed. So it basically just disappears and we'd have a weird void in the minutes of something that doesn't exist that we've postponed and brought back. So it could create like a nexus in there. But as far as the direction, my only concern, I think it could go to administration, go to legal review, and then come back to standing. I just wonder if there's an opportunity either just through discussion or through maybe a slight amendment that gives admin the leeway to bring it back either to the committee or to a standing committee before legal review if they deem that there's some stuff in there that we should get sorted out before the legal review. So if admin had the leeway to make that judgment call, I think that's what I'd be most comfortable with. Simply because I don't want to go to a legal review if admin isn't comfortable with the decisions and where it's at that point. So and I have no idea how to accomplish that via an amendment, but that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Before we proceed with Councillor Magoon, I guess administration, let's answer the question of what Councillor Nelson raised about procedurally. Are we okay to withdraw this motion if that's the direction it goes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just get the motion that we're talking about? Because we have a few that are in the chat box. I don't have anything in front of me on the screen. If I can just make sure that we're all, I'm probably the only one lost, so please forgive me. So, Ms. Anderson, it's the one that Councillor Magoon, the last one here, that Council Direct Administration. Okay, so that's, and then now I will refer to Ms. Rendell to speak to the potential void that we're creating in the universe if we happen to eliminate this one. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Because it was already postponed, if we now withdraw the motion, Councillor Nelson already has brought back on the table. So yeah, it is kind of confusing. We could probably, if you guys want to see it one more time, we could just make a little bit of like an amendment to the wording of the motion that is currently up. That, well, or either it can also be amended. I can send it to committee and committees can send it out to the members prior to us sending it for a review, if that makes you more comfortable. So just maybe if somebody just amends this one a little bit.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Magoon, I did have you in the queue and it is your motion.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wong, or pardon me, Mr. Chair. Yeah, again, I had heard some concerns earlier in the meeting about making sure that there weren't too many changes done to the motion that would require it to come back prior to going to legal counsel. However, I'm certainly favorable towards the suggestion that if administration feels like there's some really critical changes that need to come back to council before going to legal, that we would see it. If that's captured in some way, shape, or form, and as Councillor Ostashik said, then we could vote on it tonight. I'd support that, and then I don't think we'd have to withdraw it. But again, whatever's legislatively correct is, I think, the best course of action. Thank you.
Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was one of those people, and after seeing the word legislative and logistical in there, and it doesn't seem like we're changing a ton more, I'm good with it, with the current motion. So I don't know what the rest of council thinks, but I know I was one of them that Councilor Magoon heard, and I'm comfortable moving forward with this. And administration always has the latitude if something comes up to still bring it to council before it going to legal review, right? Nothing stops them from doing so. So I'd be good with that. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Magoon.
Yeah, and I saw our acting CAO nodding her head. Just to confirm, Ms. Howarth, would it be the intention of administration if there was anything that popped up that you felt, was maybe not necessarily understood by the spirit of what council had discussed? Would you bring that to council prior to going to legal then?
Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Councillor Magoon. Absolutely. So while that seems like a very linear motion, we understand that doesn't preclude doesn't mean that we can't bring anything else in between any of those steps if we find it necessary, particularly if it's affecting any legislative components for the intent that we understand, and I think we do clearly understand where committee is going with this, we would bring it back for sure.
If I may then, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
then I would hope a fellow councillor, just to keep things clean, would oppose the withdrawal. And then that way we could simply vote on the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Councillor Ostashik.
I would like to formally oppose Councillor Magoon withdrawing his proposed direction.
Okay, then, with that in mind, the motion stands. Is there any other discussion on the motion on the board? Okay, with that in mind, I'll call the question that committee direct administration to bring council procedure bylaw number 1153 to a standing committee meeting for final direction after a legal review has been completed. All those in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor Race, you were a little late with your hand. In favor? Okay, that passed unanimously then. Anything else stemming from this action item, Council? Always a legislative lesson. Thank you for the guidance, administration. If there's nothing else with this action item, then we'll move on to reporting. Council, I will start with my scenic right as I see it, and start with Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing really to report at this point. Only thing happening right now is I am currently attending the conference, not obviously right now, but the last couple of days, the policing conference. Thus far, it's been the pre-conference workshops, but they've been quite informative. Today was on community policing, or what the initiatives are in our communities, and lots of information shared today. Also some information, had a lot of conversation this morning. It was to do with hate crimes, but a lot of conversation around what's currently going on in our province with, the different movements towards restrictions, and also, unfortunately, a lot of overlap to hate crimes, using opportunities to oppose, mask wearing and the restrictions to also generate hate towards different groups as well. So a lot of good conversation there, and a lot of, really great opportunity being virtual. The speakers, we had an officer, used to be an officer from Texas, yesterday in the conversation, talking about how to interact with the community members, especially with mental health issues. But it's just opened a wide variety of different abilities to reach out to all over the world, and having speakers. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. There's a lot more workshops, presentations happening, with the actual conference happening the next 2 days. So other than that, that's all I have to report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I only have one thing to report, and that would be the BEBO committee that I attended as an alternate for Councillor Nelson. We discussed the Citizens Advisory Committee. Very good meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to Councillor Race's comments about the Beaver Boardwalk Community Oversight Committee. At the meeting yesterday, we reviewed terms of reference, did a little bit of work on that. Gave that back to administration. That'll be coming back to the committee, and we're hopefully looking towards getting that committee established with members sometime over the summer. So pretty exciting, and yeah, as that moves forward, we'll be back with more updates. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Nelson.
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add for BEBO for that matter. So thank you, committee members, for that update. Councillor Haas and myself had the privilege through Waste Management to kind of have our first preliminary talk with the group on narrowing down what the governance model will be in the future. And needless to say, it's either a more robust advisory board with rules in place in order to have accountability. A lot of, I don't want to say dissension, but a lot of good conversation. There's really two sides to this, or having a commission. So we have 2 more of these sessions with the contracted services in order to get a recommendation from them that will then come to us, and then ultimately some input from council. So, but first, a really good conversation and updates to come on that. I had the Mayor's Bebo Zoom meeting. Really, the conversation focused on the contract and the connections to the bridge, and good conversation. Not a huge turnout. We're getting generally the same, 7 people in the community who joined these meetings. I don't know if there was 7, there's probably 6. But again, it was just more of a refresher now that the contract has been given out to Fine Line, and the future of the next step for the connections for the bridge. What did I have? A business, had a Valley business owners meeting yesterday. One of their main issues, Mr. Kovach will be dealing with Mr. Holt regarding signage. So we'll have an update hopefully next time they want to have added signage down in the Valley, but it was a short, quick meeting, no specifics on that, as that discussion is going to be happening offline later this week with Mr. Kovach. And this Thursday, 8:30 BSN, I want to thank Louise Gale and all her hard work. This one is going to include 4 mayors, Mayor Iglinski, Mayor Zahara, and Mayor Ireland, and myself, discussing business as a whole. I know a huge element will be COVID related, of course, as business struggle on really knowing the path forward. So join us if you'd like at 8:30 this coming Thursday. And and a big thanks to Nancy Robbins. She is going to be moderating that again, and she did a fantastic job. And one more note on that: it started last year as the first annual, but it was just for COVID related. Now we want to do this regionally every year. So all 4 of us like this opportunity to connect with our residents, and we all have some connection. Although Jasper's a bit different, we still do share some common business, economic responsibility. So looking forward to that. And that's all, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Councillor Magoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of correspondence, I know I had reported to council that I had communicated with MLA Miranda Rawson from the Kananaskis area. I had put in a request, essentially a question about her usage of 2 things. First of all, how diverse her panel was when engaging various communities on the question of community policing, to which she had sort of informed me about why she stood by the fact that she felt that their panel did inform themselves from a wide variety of citizens across the province. The second question that I had posed to her was surrounding her usage of the term concentration camps, and why she didn't refute that publicly when given the opportunity. Why she didn't step up to the citizen in question and say that no, the federal government doesn't do that, and she left it vague. She did respond, and unfortunately, this is an instance, and I'm gonna speak a little straightforward, where the individual in question doubled down on dumb. Her indication was that she should have, in fact, clarified that, in her words, she should have explicitly quashed the rumors that literal concentration camps weren't being used, but then goes on to mention at the end of her text, but there is no denying that quarantine and detention hotels and facilities did end up being established across the country by the federal government. And in my case, that's simply going back to the initial statement that she had made and in fact was defending. So I'm a little concerned about that. The other thing that just as a counselor, with COVID, that I wanted to talk about, if we have any citizens listening, is that, our justice minister recently made some comments that were rather inflammatory and really tried to politicize COVID. I just want to take a moment as an elected official to say there's no room for that. I don't care who your political party is. We all have different stripes, as Albertans. We all have the freedom to support various political parties. But I don't think it's right or ethical to make statements such was made by the Minister of Justice yesterday or the day before, where one says that the media and other political parties want disasters involving COVID to happen. That has no place in politics. And I think it's up to elected officials like us to take a stance and say, no, that's wrong. You can't say that. And so as an elected official, I'm saying that because I don't think that's right. You can believe in whatever political platform you want and still value human life. And I don't think that those people who differ from my political beliefs devalue human life. And that's how I want to end today off. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. I myself have nothing to report. So we'll move along to urgent matters. Councillor Haas.
None for me, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Race.
Nothing, sir.
Councillor Ostashik.
I already went. Oh, so I'm sorry. My apologies. No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Nelson, urgent matters.
None for me, thank you.
Mayor Michaels.
Nothing.
Councillor Magoon.
Nothing for me.
And nothing from myself as well. Which moves us over to Chief Administrative Officer reporting and status report. Ms. Howarth.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waugh. I have nothing for committee this week. Thank you.
Okay. Legislative Services update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Ms. Rendell. Executive Assistant Logistics Information.
And I have nothing to report either.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Before I call for adjournment, just to get some clarity from admin, when should we come back for the FCSS meeting? 5-minute break sound good for everyone, or?
There is a link for each of the meetings, so we'll close this one out after, and then I'll open up the next meeting.
Okay,
Please
so
see your
I'll call for adjournment of the standing committee meeting with the expectation we're back in action for FCSS in 5 minutes. Someone to, Councillor Nelson?
I move that we adjourn.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.